Welcome, everyone, to this special bonus edition of Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. This is the 2025 Wimbledon Power Rankings show. The first, the only. And we'll have Alex Gruskin on so that we can compare notes, and we will go from the bottom of the list to the top of the list of the 2025 Wimbledon Power Rankings. Pretty self-explanatory. Not that much more to hit on in the intro other than the fact that maybe I have fixed my lighting, so my skin tone no longer resembles that of a strawberry. And also, coverage on Monday Match Analysis of Wimbledon is brought to you by Go Sport. Go Sport is a family-owned company that specializes in just tennis bags, so they do it better. And recently, I've been doing a bit of traveling. I only really need to carry 2 rackets at a time. So I have been rocking with the Axiom Tennis Backpack 2.0. A little bit smaller, easier to transport. The rackets still get their own compartment, so the storage space is still really good. There are 6 additional pockets outside of the main racket compartment where you can organize your gear, including a special ventilated pocket that I love on the big bag. It is really specialized for shoes and clothes. I use it all the time. The side pockets are great for storing large water bottles. It is cheaper than the full-sized bag, and it's even cheaper if you use the code GILL10. Get 10% off your order, and check out GEAUsport.com, gosport.com, code GILL10. And now, without further ado, here's our Wimbledon Power Rankings with Alex Gruskin. We're joined once again by Alex Gruskin, editor-in-chief, they say, of Cracked Rackets. Doing a lot of podcasting recently off of the college grind, and now we get you locked in on the pro game, which is a perfect reason to do Wimbledon Power Rankings. It is Sunday. The championships, again, as they call them, starts tomorrow. Gruskin, thanks for coming on. I want to start with I want to start this podcast by turning away all the casual fans, like right away. Like, let's waste no time. I find that grass, and Wimbledon in particular, has a way of elevating some of the lower ranked players who are just very suited to this quirky and more, novel surface. And you used to kind of love to pump up Yuri Vesely.
Okay,
so I'm just wondering,
is there a question?
So the question is, like, again,
who's that?
Just turning away the casual fans right away. Do you have like a Yuri Vesely? Have you replaced him?
So, a couple of things off the bat. One, all of your fans, my favorite fans in the business, it's great to be back. Appreciate you having me. Should know that Gill was kind enough to extend an offer to do the French Open Power Rankings. I informed him of the college coverage I was in the midst of, and then he relegated me. He said, all right, you're not ready for this one. I'll take you back for Wimbledon. So I do appreciate you having me back here. And yes, of course I do. If you want your Vesely equivalent right away, pretty obvious to me that person is Johannes Monday, who takes on Tommy Paul in round number 1, the former Tennessee All-American, big, fluid lefty. It's every coach's favorite 3 words. Like, a guy like that who's comfortable serving, volleying, who's a fluid mover, a good returner, like, he is going to push Tommy Paul. If they play 1-2 tie breaks during the course of that match, he grabs a set. You shouldn't be surprised. Similarly, sticking in that same college vein, I hope it's Oliver Tarvit versus Carlos Alcaraz in round number 2, because Tarvit has the thing you need if you're going to step onto the court with Carlos Alcaraz. He will believe he's the main character of that match. He will say, oh, the British fans aren't here to see Alcaraz. They're here to see me. And the way he is as fluid as they come, the better the opponent, the better the Tarvit. It's the pace generation where he struggles. But I agree with you. Like, this surface is subject to, as our dear friend David Kane called it, you're surfed up strawberries and cream with a side of classy chaos. Like, it is classy, but it's nothing too extreme. But, last year it was a Donna Vekic semifinal, Lulu Sun quarterfinal, obviously over the years, Berrettini and Kyrgios, and, Alcaraz getting to a final that early. Like, you have had some surprise finalists of late on the grass court. So, I don't know if I see someone getting quarterfinals in terms of that vein, but certainly there will be some fun noise in rounds number 1 and 2.
Yeah, I'm trying to think on the men's side, because the women's side's well documented.
Yeah.
Rybakina was a 17 seed. Vondrousova was unseeded. Krejcikova was a 31 seed. That's your last three champions on the women's side. I mean, less so on the men, but you did have like a Marton Fucsovics quarterfinal
Sure.
in there, and that's the recent one that is.
Raonic's final, like that's the one where he popped up. You had a Cilic
Yeah,
final in
Raonic.
2017, I believe.
True, true. Raonic just wasn't supposed to be Federer. I don't think anybody would have been surprised to see him go deep. But yeah, anyway, you did not disappoint with that answer. I mean,
Okay.
my goodness. Uh, I have nothing to say.
You weren't watching Joe Monday film in preparation for your power
No, not
rankings?
really. Like, I was on board with your Vesely thing. Like, I also had a crush on him on grass.
Former
So,
world junior number one. I still hold
well,
the stock.
I'll give
If
you mine.
Tomic can play in Mallorca.
Look, I'm into Diallo. I think Diallo on grass
It's a
is a
really good
real
call.
thing. You could be happy with that because he also played college tennis. But big serve and the net rushing, which early in his career, I was like, wow, you're coming forward a lot for somebody who doesn't volley that well. Now he's volleying well, and I'm loving it. So obviously won his first career title to start the year. Diallo's kind of my guy. But let's get into the power rankings. You had a question for me in regards to the whole deal?
I do because I think specifically this season, when you're trying to settle in on a theme of what has happened at the top of the men's tennis world, look, the French Open final papers over what has been a very messy top eight in 2025 for the men. Certainly we know Alcaraz, Sinner, those are the guys to beat. Draper and Musetti have risen, but are you ready to call them surefire tier one slam contenders yet? I don't know if any of us are ready to go that far. Obviously, Novak Djokovic is always looming, particularly at the biggest events over these last two seasons. But again, like I should have said him before Draper and Musetti. Still, who's your four? Who's your five? Who's your six? And so my question is, as you were putting this list together, how significant did the draw factor in your power rankings? Because, I have thoughts independently on the hierarchy, but you look at a Jack Draper's draw, or you look at a Daniil Medvedev's draw, whomever name you want to turn to that was dealt something a little tougher. It's hard to ignore that if this list is supposed to be who are the 10 most likely men to win.
Yeah, great question, important question. The power rankings are supposed to be completely independent of the draw. And usually the power rankings are done before the draw comes out. And I've reversed it here, which I'm not a fan of actually. Like I'd rather do the power rankings before the draw, but just because I think I just like needed a little bit of a breather, it ended up going this way instead. And by the way, Wimbledon is now the only event that doesn't play the first round on a Sunday. So the fact that we even get this day to sort of stew in these storylines is unique to Wimbledon. But yeah, ignore the draw, throw it out the window as best you can.
All right. It was my tiebreaker for many of these power ranking spots with the margins being as thin as they were. So I did factor it in slightly. I'm sure it will cloud some of my analysis. But yes, I too am a fan of independently coming up with these rankings prior to the draw. So I'm ready to rock and roll. I got 10 fun names.
It generally helps to also look at, well, who did get a tough draw? Who did get an easier draw? When you look at, I mean, in this case, I don't think this Wimbledon draw is very balanced, top half, bottom half. I think it's a little crooked. You can look at the power rankings, which, by the way, I did do before the draw came out. Obviously, like I didn't do a show, but I made them. And then I've adjusted them a little bit based on the results of this week. But it was also illuminating and just looking at who got a good draw and who did not. All right. So let's start with some guys who I had just missing, and you can let me know if any of these guys got in for you. Did Alex de Minaur get in?
Tough leave. He did not get in for me. And look, Demon has had a sound season. I know he's currently sitting at 11th right now in the live rankings. He's 9th in the points race, and he's fewer than 50 points behind Tommy Paul. So while the highs maybe haven't been quite as pronounced as they were last season, quarterfinals obviously for him in Australia, that Rotterdam final as well was decent during the Sunshine Swing. Decent wasn't quite good enough for me from an upside perspective to be like, okay, but is he one of the 10 guys who could win? Could he make the quarters? Sure. I just had a tougher time in my head going beyond that.
Agreed. I feel bad leaving him out. I've always thought grass is probably his best surface. That Wimbledon, other than the Australian Open, probably his best slam. But when you are 0-5 in major quarterfinals, technically 0-4 because he didn't play one of them, and that was Wimbledon last year with the injury. It kind of is what it is. Like we've always had the assumption that De Minaur is going to struggle to beat top seeds at majors, and that's how it's played out so far in his career. So, there are arguments for him, but I did leave him out as well. Okay, I left out Jakub Menchik. Did you leave out Jakub Menchik? And this is the guy who probably, I always say, the power rankings are not my predictions. Everyone who watched my predictions knows I have Menchik in the quarterfinals. But results-wise, I didn't think there was anything there to justify him in the top 10 in a more objective power rankings. But I know you kind of like to get a little bit more, I don't know, you're not afraid to insert your opinion a little bit more into these lists. So do you have him in there?
Oh, you mean I like to entertain fans who are kind enough to offer their time with analysis they might not hear otherwise? Yeah, I agree. I do a good job of that. No, I did not quite take a swing on Jakub Menchik. This is where I always like to remind listeners at the start of a show like this that a few years ago, probably 4, around this time, someone came on a podcast I was doing and offered what seemed like a ludicrous take that Carlos Alcaraz's best surface throughout the course of his career would be grass courts. That person was Gill Gross, who came on my show and offered that take 4 years ago, and boy, has it aged beautifully. I feel like it's pretty easy to make a leap like that with Jakub Menchik because of the weapons he possesses, because of how low the backhand stays, how comfortable he is playing it as slice, how comfortable he is moving forward, how comfortable he is redirecting the forehand. Feels like he has a lower center of gravity that will allow him to move well on this surface too. Like he feels like a very much spring and attack forward into the ball. Yep. I'm not quite there yet. I think his ranking, I don't want to say it's inflated because you look at relative to the rest of the field this year, like 17 feels about right. But I don't know if he's quite ready to make that next leap forward yet. I think him holding this position moving forward, that's really good for the 19-year-old. He didn't quite crack my top 10 because I'm not quite ready to make that leap yet.
Yep, he's had issues at the slams also as well early on. Did Matteo Berrettini make your top 10? I feel like for a lot of people, you're not even thinking about the fact that Berrettini is playing, but he very much is, and he's usually a factor here.
Not only is he playing, he's seated. He did make my top 10, and I will save my argument for why, and it speaks to perhaps the rest of the field that a guy who has played fewer than 30 matches at the halfway mark of the season can crack a top 10 on a list like this. I have a convincing case, I think, for you, and I look forward to sharing it when we get to it on my list.
I might like him better than my number 10. I'm just looking at it right now. I
can't believe you left him out. I worried I had him too low.
He's been injured since Madrid, and he hasn't had as good a 2025 as I thought. You have kind of one run in Miami where he made the quarterfinals and he lost to Taylor Fritz, and it's pretty dry outside of that. So I just feel like there's not enough momentum for Matteo right now. But I don't know. In theory, I kind of do like him. Also, there's always the chance that he's playing Wimbledon and he's just not 100%.
Sure.
So we'll have to see about that. All right, we'll hit on Berrettini in a moment. I'm assuming you don't have this guy in, but I will mention him. Felix Auger-Aliassime.
No, I don't have him. I just can't confidently put him in a top 10 list. I was discussing this with David Kane yesterday because he was on my list of the most interesting players entering this Wimbledon. Do you know, despite the disappearing act from March to this month, really, on the ATP Tour, Felix is 15th in the points race right now.
He's been unreal at times.
And it's like he is I think it's 255 points behind 8th place Tommy Paul right now. That ain't nothing with a full back half of the year to go. There is a world where Felix finishes top 8, but if I'm going to believe in that world existing for a guy who does turn 25 this year, it's like, all right, dude, this is your prime. It starts right now. It starts with this major. I don't know if I'm ready to make the leap, but he needs to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's been a very Felix-like year. He had an awesome February. I said this when he finished the year world number 6 in 2022. I'm like, great year, Felix, but I want to see you win outdoors. I want to see you play the bigger events better. Like just crushing it in February and crushing it in October. Like this is, I think, the genesis of another famous podcast that we had a few years back where we were talking about February and October players. So FAA has been, look, at both of the majors this year, he's blown 2-0 leads and he hasn't passed the second round at any of the majors. So he's menacing on grass at times, but also because he's the 27 seed, in theory, he plays Alcaraz third round. I know we're not supposed to really look at the draw, but the fact that he's the 27 seed will hurt him here at Wimbledon. Anyway, the last
Fonseca?
guy, there's two other guys. Fonseca, I'm not, honestly, I don't think he's in consideration right now on this surface. I think there's a learning curve, and I don't think he's there. You don't have him in?
I mean, he's always in consideration for me, but no, I did not put him in quite yet.
Him or
I
Fernley? Who wins the first round match? I think Fernley gets him.
If you want to know what I'll be doing, it's watching that and watching Tien Bosavaretti from first shot to last throughout the course of that first round and Monday, Paul. All my guys. I'll throw Diallo on that list for you. Fernley. But yeah, like Fernley, but not confidently. Jake's
not
really
confident.
good on this surface.
He is. He's got kind of perfectly built compact ground strokes. I have two more names who I left off. I left off Ben Shelton, and I left off Holger Rune.
Not going to get any pushback from me. Shelton was the last man I left off because Ben at a minimum holds seed at majors. That's what he does. The 3 out of the 5 set format he has thrived in. I happened to be watching the Lechechka quarterfinal match he played 2 weeks ago where he lost 1 point on serve behind his first serve in that match. And you just saw the outline of a player who at his best might be really, really good on this surface. The return is an issue, but that weakness is minimalized by the fact that comparatively everyone is worse on return on this surface, so he can kind of get away with it, being a little bit more aggressive. Again, he's in that top half of the draw. I know we were supposed to ignore that, but that was a tiebreaker for me in trying to factor this 10th spot, and so he just missed out because of that. It's just a loaded top half, but why not is a fine argument I will listen to.
Yeah, lost first round in Mallorca to Lerner Tien, lost first round at Queens to Arthur Rinderknecht. He played well in Stuttgart, and you're right, he was dominant on serve, but Stuttgart, it was 95 degrees, and it's one of the fastest grass courts, and it was a joke conditions-wise for servers. So the fact that Ben couldn't get broken, it's like, okay, but it's not really going to look like that at Wimbledon exactly.
It was magnificent. After the match, he goes, look, did we play a lot of long points today? No. I'm sorry, fans. Like, that could not have been fun to watch. And it was like, no, it was kind of fun.
His ace rate in that match was 40%.
Yeah. Means he's hitting an ace a game. Like, it's a free point. Mark it up.
Yeah. Look, the one reason you hesitate to leave Shelton off of a power rankings ahead of a major is because he plays so much better at the majors. Okay, and Rune, just a lot of off days. It's been a very uneven season, and the RBA loss in Queens was tough, and in best of 5, he continues to kind of hit a wall come end of the first week, start of the second week, where physically you just see stuff go in the wrong direction seemingly. Would that be a similar case that you'd make in terms of leaving Holger off?
Yeah, I just don't know if Holger has done anything inspiring enough this season for me to propel him on this list. Like, I know he was the one guy to beat Alcaraz on the clay courts, but it's just the circumstances of that Barcelona victory. I know he made the Indian Wells final, but that was a weird Indian Wells. And I just, again, no Sinner in the draw there. Not trying to take anything away from him, nor Draper, but I don't know. It's somehow this year, a guy who has been consistently top 12 all season long, I'm underwhelmed by Holger Rune's season, and I didn't want someone underwhelming, although I have a couple in my top 10. It's scales of it. It's a confidence thing. Like, is this really where he's going to right the ship? I don't think so.
Yep, makes sense. All right, let's continue the Matteo Berrettini discussion that we kind of started. Maybe you can convince me to swap him with my number 10. My number 10 is Tommy Paul. Queens champion last year. It was a great run where he beat Draper, Korda, and Musetti. Quarterfinals at 3 of the last 4 majors. Paris was impressive because it felt like he was injured and kind of scrapped his way to the last 8. The consistency has been really admirable, but he feels kind of stuck to me, which is why I liked him at number 10. But would you make a case for Berrettini above him? Or where do you have Tommy and where do you have Matteo?
So Tommy was another guy who just missed my list and probably shouldn't have. Again, this was a little, I looked at the draw and he's right in that center 16th of the draw. And it's just a really tough place for him to maneuver through because even if you get through that, you're still on the Djokovic-Draper side as well. Obviously, there is more of a track record for Tommy on the surface. This was really the surface he began his breaking into the top 12 and being that consistent guy back in 2023. I have Matteo Berrettini at 8th. It's getting a little ahead of it, but since you asked me to make the case for him now, let's keep in mind, this guy for 2 years was one of the favorites to win this title. Obviously, he makes the final of this event in 2021. Then 2022, he wins back-to-back events in the build-up to that 2022 Wimbledon, forced to withdraw because of, obviously, I think he contracted COVID and, again, was forced to pull out of the event because of it right before. And this was a guy who's probably second on your list after Djokovic. Kyrgios vultured what should have been a back-to-back Berrettini final. That's how well he was playing during that window. And even if he has been relative to that, underwhelming at Wimbledon since. Keep in mind, this is a guy who in 2023 played Alcaraz to 4 sets. Last year, a fascinating 4-set battle with Jannik Sinner. Obviously, Sinner takes all 3 tie breaks in that match, but Berrettini was with him shot for shot. Now, you raised some really good points. Hasn't played in a month and a half, didn't play the French Open, has still played fewer than 30 matches this season, and it's not quite as electric as it was in 2024 when he was coming back and winning everything he was playing. He just wasn't playing frequently enough to make a fluid top 25 push. I think there's some urgency for Matteo Berrettini, certainly as well. He's now 29 years old, and perhaps you are already of the belief that the window has closed for Matteo Berrettini. I'm probably of that belief as well. But if we are talking, who are the 10 players who have displayed a high enough level, and in particular, a high enough level on this surface, which as we've established is different from all others, Berrettini is one of the few players you can actually put on that short list where it's, okay, well, is his best actually good enough to beat any of the guys right now? And I do think the answer to that question is yes. I do think you play that match against Sinner 10 times last year, he wins 2 or 3 of them. I think his serve can be threatening against Alcaraz, and he can play on his terms in a way you have to on this surface. Take the ball off his racket. He's done it before. His success relies much more on himself than a lot of other guys on this list. It doesn't matter what his opponent's doing. If Berrettini's serving well, you're going to a tiebreak. I've seen it from him on grass courts. I really haven't seen it from a bunch of other guys on this list. That's why he's 8 for me, despite, to your point, the significant health concerns.
Yeah, he's the most decorated guy on grass outside of Alcaraz, Djokovic, and maybe Marin Cilic.
Yeah.
So he's right up there. I feel a little bit differently, though, about how, when he stacks up against elite competition, I always feel like the limitations are just really exposable and the holes kind of start to look kind of gaping. And that's why I've almost looked at him more as like a gatekeeper on this surface, but I've never felt. The thing is, 2020 through 2022, when you're right, he was like a top 3 Wimbledon favorite. I always felt like the Djokovic matchup was like a foregone conclusion. There's no way Mateo, you know what I mean? So sure. I always felt like it was a weird place that the game was in. There wasn't a lot of depth, especially on this surface, and Berrettini was clearly going to mow guys down. But when it comes to, the best returners, get them in a baseline rally, expose the backhand, expose the movement, and the second serve point dynamic is going to be lopsided whenever he faces these guys. That said, you made a good point. The match against Sinner last year was impressive.
He can knock off a couple of guys more so than I would trust a Tommy to do so, more so than I would trust a Dimenauer to do so. The best version of him belongs in this top 10, and it's a swing, but a swing I'm willing to take.
No, and I get it. And I'll keep Tommy at 10 because I think there's more certainty
Yeah.
with just the recent results. So we'll have a difference there. Worth noting though, Berrettini against top five opponents for his career is 6-19. He always loved playing team. He beat team three times of those six. But he's also beaten Zverev twice on clay, once in Rome back in 2019, once in Monte Carlo, which was earlier this year. Zverev wasn't in the best headspace. It was a high quality match, though. Zverev didn't play that Monte Carlo match badly, and Berrettini was awesome. And look, I thought Matteo was going to have a big 2025. So I've been a little bit taken aback that it hasn't been better. So we've got my number 10, Paul, your number 8, Berrettini. Who is your number 10?
Okay. I think you're going to like this swing because in discussions we have had off mic, and yeah, just so listeners know, we are friends. We do talk. I think there is a consensus amongst, as I like to call them, the tennis intelligentsia, that this guy is quietly becoming the overlooked of the young rising stars and on the short list of underrated players in the men's game right now. I went Yuri Lehechka as my number 10. And I don't think it's that big of a swing because you look for the 23-year-old who this season, 24-13 overall, obviously just played a Queen's Club final where he lost to Alcaraz in 3 sets, but he beats Draper, he beats Fernley, he beats Diallo, he beats de Minaur. Like, those are 4 serious wins on this surface to build up some confidence. Obviously, he had that weird loss in Stuttgart, but I don't know if anyone was beating Stuttgart and Ben Shelton on that day in Stuttgart serving the way he was in those conditions. This is a guy who's made the round of 16 at Wimbledon before, did it back in 2023, beat Cerundolo and Paul on his way to that round of 16. Injuries have prevented the significant breakthrough. We haven't seen him have a 3-month run or a 6-month run, 3-month run like Musetti, 6-month run the way Jack Draper has. Like, he hasn't had that extended run of success yet. But we have seen the 23-year-old make a quarterfinal, did it at Australia a couple of years ago. We have seen him have significant success. This is a guy who beat Carlos Alcaraz earlier this season as well. His surface, he wants to play downhill. His line drive tennis, that ball just stays so low on you. He's so comfortable redirecting line, which is something if you can just catch someone misfooted, you are rewarded so thoroughly on this surface. He's a comfortable volleyer. He's certainly a little stiff. He's one of those guys who does one thing and does that one thing really well. But that one thing allows him to play on his terms. And again, I cheated because I was looking for someone from the bottom half of the draw, just the more advantageous side. He's in that Runa 16th section. Why not Yuri Lehechka? Like, I think I'm ready to put him at number 10 on this list. I'm curious if he cracked your list.
He did not. And it wasn't hard for me. I just don't know if you're right that given some of his results and his age, like if you just take those 2 data points, he's been really like underlooked and probably underhyped, if you can say that.
Sure.
I think the reason is the eye test part where he's very, it's kind of Rublev-like, and Rublev has had an awesome career, so it's not like a bad comp or anything. If Lehechka does what Rublev has done, it'd be an incredibly successful career. It's mostly offense. You're just not seeing the defensive side of things. And as a result, it's like he's going to have some hot weeks. To me, he's always going to have some colder weeks. And I need to see, you're right, it's the consistent run. You put it well. Like, he hasn't had a 3 months where it's like, yeah, Lehechka's in there every week. So that's the reason why I look at the Queen's run and I'm like, yep. Not surprised that he had a big explosive run. I knew that was coming at some point because he's that talented and that explosive, but I'm not going to bank on him to do it at the very next event.
His coach, Tomas Berdych, made a couple of finals at this event, and certainly
Former
coach, excuse me. And I like, you're right. It's not. That's why it's a little bit of a swing. That's why he's at 10, because you haven't seen a sustained run out of him. But like, again, who's going to have a better, higher upside, him or Tommy Paul? Like, what's more likely to happen? He beats Runa or Tommy beats Sinner? And I know that's cheating, but that was how I was differentiating between a group of players 7 through 18, 25 this year that have all been the same shades of, I don't know, it depends on the week. Give me a good Lechechka 2 weeks of upside over the rest of the field.
We have your 8, we have your 10, we're missing your 9. My number 9 is Alexander Zverev.
Mine as well.
Okay, wow. So we align. This is kind of fascinating. I mean, Zverev, look, he hasn't made a quarterfinal at Wimbledon. He hadn't made a grass court final. He broke the streak in Stuttgart. He hadn't made a grass court final since pre-pandemic, even though I'm sure he hadn't made a habit of playing a ton before Wimbledon, probably one event each year on average. He's piped it up. I just think there are some belief issues right now for Zverev. He's had some really tough losses. And to get on now, he's going to get on a surface that he's not comfortable on. Those things are just going to be exacerbated. He's been kind of consistent, though. There's not a lot of like first round, second round losses. So I guess we align on this. But do you think that Zverev, let me put it to you this way. Do you think Zverev retires without a Wimbledon quarterfinal?
That's interesting. Zverev right now, one of 5 players to rank top 15 in both hold and break percentage. Sinner's top 10, Djokovic 15, Djokovic, Zverev, Draper, Alcaraz 15, Lechechka, top 20 club, one of 6 players. Only 8 players top 25 in both hold and break percentage right now. That's as low as I have ever seen it, which just speaks to not a lot of players playing their absolute best here in 2025. No, that's why I have him at 9. The answer to your question is I do think he will make a quarterfinal at Wimbledon at some
Agreed.
point. This is a guy now who has been consistently top 10 in hold percentage and makes a ton of first serves. That is the name of the game in grass court tennis. All of the work he has done moving forward in becoming a more willing volleyer, even though I really do think Itwa should give out an award at the end of the year for most hung volleys that led to a second passing shot attempt where you were ultimately passed. Like, that's the Sasha Zverev autobiography title. It's just like, why couldn't I finish that volley? But he has become a more willing volleyer. He does quietly have a very good overhead. And that's going to pay dividends. His length on this surface, the comfort level with his return of serve and the depth that he can generate. It was so fascinating to see Medvedev Zverev devolve into just their typical baseline tactics where it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter the surface. We're going to trade backhands cross court. That's just what we do. Zverev has that unique ability to inject his speed, his pace, his occasional ugliness of tactics into every match that he plays. It's actually his biggest strength, that even against a Djokovic in a match he loses in 4 sets, like, it was played at Zverev's pace and that broken, again, sometimes lengthy rally pace. He can still inject that. He's in that bottom half of the draw. The Berrettini matchup is obviously tough, but if he can get through that, things really open up from there. He's too good of a server to not make a quarterfinal here at Wimbledon. Do I expect him to win a Wimbledon title? No, I don't think that's where a first major title would ever come for Sasha Zverev. But I do certainly think he can be in the final 8. Through all of the inconsistencies, Zverev making final 8s at majors has been a consistent theme of the 2020s.
4 or more at the other 3.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think it'll happen for him at some point. But the lack of baseline proactivity makes him unthreatening when he's playing top players here. He needs to figure out a way to kind of take the racket, take matters into his own hands a little bit more often if he can on the grass, because he can't defend as well on the surface. I'm thinking about Berrettini also. Like, you want to take away Zverev's backhand strength, you put him on a grass court against Matteo, who's hitting backhand slices cross court. And Zverev will do nothing with that backhand and has to try to keep it away from Matteo's forehand. So that'll be interesting. But also, like, let me point this out before we move on. Berrettini, Zverev on a grass court. There is a difference in serve precision. Like, sure. Matteo puts the ball on the sidelines. Zverev doesn't. So you do not be shocked. As we saw in the final in Stuttgart, like, Fritz out-aced Zverev handedly. Not because of what's happening on the radar gun, but because of the precision. And I just think the serve, it's great that you're making a high percentage of first serves, but on the grass, the MPHs are not at a premium as much as the spot serving, and especially if you have a great slice serve, which Zverev kind of does not. Okay, but we agree.
That's a
My
very
number
good
eight.
point. It's a very good point, by the way. That's why you do what you
Thank you,
do.
sir.
Yeah, shout out to you. Serve precisions. I like it.
My number eight is in a similar vein with Zverev. I don't know that just narratively, he's in somewhat of a similar spot. It's Daniil Medvedev, and honestly, it feels weird to put Medvedev above Zverev on a list in 2025. I mean, Zverev has outplayed Daniil handedly the last couple of years, but head to head, we just saw it. And Medvedev, Wimbledon semifinalist last year, hollow runner up this year. He definitely appreciates the surface more than Zverev does. And that's kind of the difference maker here. It's why I put Medvedev a tick above Zverev, but we're still not in the range in the power rankings where I'm really feeling great about these guys going to the final weekend. Where do you have
No,
Medvedev?
I'm glad you brought him up because I have him at 7, right above Matteo Berrettini at number 8. Very quietly, like you may have forgotten, Daniil Medvedev's made the semifinals at Wimbledon each of the last 2 seasons. We just saw him put forward, I thought, his best week of serving maybe of the last 52 weeks in Halle, like the match in particular against Mickelson, in the match against Zverev as well. And, again, he has had 2 prominent failures in serve in 2 recent tiebreaks. That second set tiebreak to see his serve abandon him against Bublik. And then I was watching his matchup against Opelka to watch him double fault those last 2 points and give that second set tiebreak away. It was a legitimate, dude, what are you doing? Despite that, look, you mentioned it, like institutional know-how on this surface is the most valuable because you get 1 month of it every season. You're lucky if you play 6 matches, let alone, 3, let alone 6 going into Wimbledon on the surface to become accustomed to it. And Medvedev's maybe decline. I don't want to say he's a full step slower, but he's not covering court the way he once did. It's minimized on this surface because you're just not moving as much. His serve, which I think he too at his best was less spot server and more I'm going to go hard and heavy into your body and just going to do that consistently, and you're going to give me enough free points that I'm going to break you. Like, he's more rewarded on this surface with that first serve than he has been on these other surfaces of late. He does have a little bit of confidence making his first final in Halle, beating Zverev in 3 sets. I don't think he's playing great, and certainly the idea of him versus Fritz in the round of 16 as projected, like you probably pick Taylor Fritz in that match. I was looking it up. I thought they'd have more matchups in their career head-to-head. Only 1-1, the career head-to-head between the two. I would also point out mentally, like in Medvedev's head, he's probably like, yeah, but I've made a decade owning Taylor Fritz. Like, I've been the guy of our generation. He's a part of my generation. I think just mentally, that's a good matchup for him. He's in that bottom half as well. There, again, a good return of serve. The depth on his backhand, so effective on this surface. All of his funky slices and awkward court positionings, like they're just rewarded because of the awkwardness of it all. Institutional know-how. He's the highest floor pick for me. He's number 7.
Yeah, there was a time when Medvedev was just destroying it on the hard courts, like 2019 through 2022. Wasn't the same on grass. There was a lot of actually, there were a lot of people down on Medvedev on grass. And other than the really deep return position, which can definitely there are definitely some major downsides on this surface to returning from deep. But other than that, it was always like, wait, he hits really flat and the ball stays super low as is. And he kind of needs a little help offensively in quicker conditions. He's always liked to get a little bit of help offensively. This surface gives him that. So I feel like the back-to-back Wimbledon semifinals last couple of years, it's just validated, I think, what always sort of made sense, that Medvedev, okay, he loses a little bit of the movement and the defense, but grass does help his game in certain ways. So, okay.
There's
Medvedev
also
at
just
number 8.
urgency. Like, if not now for Medvedev, to your point, he has owned the North American summer throughout the course of his career, and he's got to kick, and he's just nowhere near the form he needs to be to get there. So it's got to start here.
I don't like the urgency. The mental game to me is not a positive right now for Medvedev. I think the confidence is fickle. He goes into panic mode quickly. He is playing with his equipment way more than I think anybody should be playing with their equipment. I just think it speaks to a lack of confidence when it gets that extreme. But if he gets going and he starts to just feel comfortable with what he's doing out there, then sure.
What happens first? He makes another slam final or starts a podcast?
Um, I actually, that's a good question. I think I'd take podcast probably.
It's
I'm
close.
not, I haven't been that Medvedev optimistic. Like there's been a lot of questions swirling in the last couple of years. When is he going to return to form? And I really haven't been that guy saying like, don't worry, everybody, he'll be back. That hasn't been my stance.
Hardcourt team feels like a fair comparison, but nevertheless.
Okay. My 7 is Taylor Fritz, who has 2
7?
titles. 7. Yeah.
He's my 4.
I get it. I get it. He's what now 15th in the race, with 2 very disappointing losses at the majors this year. One against Monfils in the 3rd round. I thought Gill played awesome. One against Altmaier at the 1st round of Roland Garros, which I thought was probably more avoidable from Taylor's perspective. But it's just hard it's just the performance this year. And I don't want to go too nuts over 250 titles on the grass. Eastbourne, he wins every year. Granted, the run was a little bit more impressive this year than it was last year. Last year was a bit of a cakewalk, but this year, Fritz, I know he beat Davidovich Fokina. I know he beat Brooksby in the final. He beat Giron and Fonseca. So every match, none of the wins were super impressive, but all of them were at least somewhat impressive.
Yeah, I don't know how you have him as low as 7th. In terms of grass court pedigree, there are a few players on this list who can combine that with actually bringing close to their best level to this Wimbledon, more so than Taylor Fritz, who, again, I have as high as 4. Obviously, he's won the 2 titles, Stuttgart, Eastbourne. I love that in between them is sandwiched a loss to Corentin Moutet. Like, just gotta love this sport. Taylor Fritz is first in hold percentage this season. He's holding 91.4% of the time. And I do think prior to maybe last season, Taylor Fritz was a big server in theory. Like, it's not as though the hold percentage hasn't always been exceptional. He's a career 84.5 hold percentage, the average top 50 player, usually around 82.5. So, like, he's always been a top 20, top 15 sort of guy. But he's become a top 5 guy, definitively, over the last 18 months. And even in a year where he's 21-11, like, that serve is winning him free points, and the way he has cleaned up everything else within that service game. He's always had the +1 weaponry, but now he acknowledges the role that coming forward can play in him being more successful. And he, too, every year the finalist for hangs the most awards, volleys amongst ITWA would be Zverev and Fritz. But this is a surface where as long as you make the first volley, it is more advantageous. And so I think you combine that fact with the sour taste in his mouth, beat Zverev last year but gave away that Musetti quarterfinal, the urgency, as you alluded to earlier, like, this is a guy who has not been good at the majors so far this season, is 15th in the points race and has so much to defend down the season's home stretch. Like, it starts for now for Taylor Fritz. Taylor Fritz is a foxhole guy. Like, he's a guy who you want to go to war with because you know he's going to do everything in his powers to maximize himself. He should have been the guy who took advantage of the vacuum at the top of the men's game this year. If everyone else of the next gen was going to fall, no Medvedev, no Rublev, no Tsitsipas, you would have thought coming off of last fall, Fritz would be the guy to step into that place.
He got hurt.
Hasn't been. Yeah, exactly.
He was playing. He was playing through it. But the oblique was bothering him the whole time. And you're talking about, in fairness, also a pretty short window of time. Sinner suspended, Alcaraz kind of struggling, Zverev struggling. Like, you're talking about February through, up until the start of April when Taylor couldn't really take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, I know, hard courts in particular. And it's just now we're back on his surfaces. Grass, hard courts. This is where it starts for Taylor. He finally is healthy. He has his confidence. I'm willing to put him, he's in the bottom half of the draw. I'm willing to put him at 4.
Yeah, well, look, I know you're thinking like we're going to fight about this and it's going to be great, but I'm not going to fight about this. No, I'm not, because I picked him to the semis. So,
So
like,
move him up your list.
no, I
Yeah.
don't think he deserves it. I don't
That's
think he's done.
crazy talk. I don't then do you know what numbers are? Like, do I have to re-explain like how 1 through 7 works on this? Because that's what I think. If you have him in the semis and you acknowledge this, I guess are the rest of the picks they have higher upside? Like, explain then why he would be lower than whomever you have at 6.
Because they've done more. They've done more to deserve it. Taylor hasn't shown it. I think based on some draw factors and based on like a confidence that I have in his ability to play better than he has all year. But that's me. Like that's just me projecting the future. If I'm looking at what we've seen, what we have to go off of, I just don't think Taylor deserves to be number 4.
Where I push back, apologies for interrupting, and then you final word, of course. It is your show. It's just, how can you say that when he's won 2 titles in a month where you have 4 events is the max you can play? And of his 4 events, he will have won 2 of them. He made the quarterfinals of Wimbledon last year. He made the U.S. Open final last year. And yes, he has been not that guy this season, but you can attribute it almost directly to the injuries, and it feels like he's finally free of them. So I guess I know the players you're considering for the rest of your list, and I'm fascinated to hear the arguments you have for them, for placing them above Fritz.
All right, I'm changing it. Fritz gets to move up 1. Fritz is my 6 now.
Now I feel like I have 1. So who's your 7?
Okay, my new 7 is Alexander Bublik.
Okay, now we're talking. You know what? I didn't know that's who you had ahead of him. I rescind all of it because now it makes sense. Like, you could have led with that. No, that's a great pick. I should have had him make the case. I love that.
Well, especially because if we're going to talk about like deserving overall body of work, I can't really turn around and be like, yeah, Bublik is next above Fritz, a guy who's made 1 4th round at Wimbledon. I don't have it in front of me, but oh no, he just made his first major quarterfinal at Roland Garros, and that is he's 28 years old, so it's not like we're looking at some young pup rising whose, I guess, counting stats haven't caught up to how good he actually is. Bublik's just played 2 awesome tournaments in a row, and the eye test is immense right now, and it's not the first time he's gone on an absolute tear on grass courts in Halle, because he won it a few years ago. So you just feel like threatening, like in terms of threatening wise. And the biggest feather in Bublik's cap right now is he is the only player other than Alcaraz to beat Jannik Sinner in the last 6 months plus. The only player outside the top 20 to beat Jannik Sinner in the last, like, I think a year. It was almost 2 years, like a year and 8 to 10 months. So that has to mean something, because Sinner has been such an incredible barometer, such a difficult test for everybody. I think to get through that in the impressive way that he did is also something that Bublik can hang his hat on. And then he backed it up and he went all the way and he was able to win that title in Halle. The knock on Bublik is that outside of Halle, the grass court resume actually isn't as good as you might think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the knock on him. Look, like, let me ask you this. Is he more likely, in your mind, to win the title or lose first round?
Lose first round.
Which is why I can't have him in my top 10, but I cede all of your points. Like, everything you said is accurate. And for the first time maybe ever, he comes in with confidence, and he comes in wanting to be a professional tennis player. And I know that seems so simple and so 10,000-foot viewing, not particularly analytical, but it's just he's having fun out there. He's got momentum on his side. He has incentive to not go tank a match down a set and a break in a first round. And I just think, like, an engaged Sasha Bublik is something we haven't seen for 3 months consecutively. If we get that, he should be on this list, but I just left him off.
Okay. I am surprised by that, but yeah. I get it.
I took a Lehechka swing instead because I really wanted to include him.
Yeah. A lot of this comes down to the fact that I feel, well, first of all, the mental point you just made, I think is right. And there's a reason for it. It's because he got really desperate. He was like, I'm not going to be, if he didn't have a good clay court season, he was potentially not going to be a professional tennis player anymore. because he was going to have to go play a bunch of challengers, which he's played 175s this year. But I mean, he said that this isn't me talking. This is what Sasha said himself, that if he didn't turn things around, he was just going to retire because he was that close to the kind of reaching the end point of this isn't working and I think I'm good. So he got really, really desperate, and that's when the results started coming. But by the way, like, I just think there are technical things that he's doing from the back of the court now that I never used to see from him. And it makes me think that he didn't just get hot serving. He didn't just get good draws. Like, that's not what these last two runs at Roland Garros and Halle are about. It's about genuine improvements he's made, and that's what has me so positive with Bublik.
Yeah.
So I think we are missing your number 6.
We are good. Okay, so I should have anticipated you would put Bublik. I guess having him that high was what threw me off. But it's a good argument to make, by the way, because in terms of the high upside picks, like everything I said about Berrettini minus the track record applies to him. I went Lorenzo Musetti with my number 6 spot. And rather than make the case for him, because I anticipate you have him in your top 5 here, so I'll cede that to you. I am positing you to this question. If Lorenzo Musetti makes a quarterfinal or further here at this Wimbledon, and he made semifinals last year, is he done enough in your mind to become a consensus top 8 guy moving forward? Like, the 23-year-old was that good during the clay court season. In fact, if Alcaraz hadn't gone Monte Carlo, Rome, French Open titles, like, it's pretty clear he had the best clay court season. And all due respect to Sinner, Musetti had the second best clay court season. Is he playing for top 8 status?
Yeah, I think he's there. I mean, he went 12-3 on the grass last year.
Yeah.
Stuttgart semis, Queens final, Wimbledon semifinal. He had a win over De Minaur, who was playing awesome last year at this time. He obviously had the Fritz win at Wimbledon. If you look at his entire career on grass, the quality of his losses are really, really high. Like, there are not a lot of losses in there where you think, oh, like that's a tough one. He's kind of like David Ferrering at the moment. He doesn't beat elite competition. He doesn't have big titles yet in his career. But my goodness, the consistent quarterfinals, semifinals, finals from time to time. I mean, it has been immense, not just at the big events, all of the big events on the natural surfaces, which is why I have him really high on this list. He is on an unbelievable run of deep runs on the big events on the natural surfaces.
Yeah, it makes sense too, his touch, like his slice line, his ability to redirect things on the run, because again, doing the unanticipated is rewarded that much more thoroughly on this surface because you don't have your feet underneath you, because it's that much more difficult to react to that specifically.
His movement is incredible on the
pristine,
grass.
And his serve has gotten a lot better, and he has always been a spot server, to your point earlier. Like, his cutter wide on the deuce side is particularly impressive. He is so adept. His block, slice, backhand return is exceptional. Like, Roger Federer made a living with that shot on this surface. Musetti is probably the closest to it this side of us mortals. And to your point, like, he has been that consistent now. You look for Lorenzo Musetti, 25-8 overall on the year. You're right. It hasn't been against elite competition all the time, but he was that good on the clay courts. Like, this guy beat, Tsitsipas and De Minaur twice, I think it was, on clay. Like, you can keep going across the list. He was
tier 3 wins. Tier 3 wins.
So the idea that he's going to be the guy in 2025 to consolidate a top 8 spot, like, that wasn't on my bingo card. He fell out of our top 4 picks, maybe our top 8 picks, like, in our 23 and under prospect draft last year. And he has made us eat our words. Like, he has been that good consistently now. He does it one more time. It's not a fluke. It's just like, he's probably here to stay.
That's true. The big one, it's going to be really interesting, him versus Shelton.
Yeah.
And can he get through that one if it happens? All right. At number 5, I've got Jack Draper.
I do as well.
Do you think, I mean, what's the big question here? Is it the pressure? Is it the mental game? Is it the fact that he just basically assumes like this Andy Murray role of being the front page of the newspaper every single day for the next 2 weeks?
So I'm glad that's the angle you took because that's what I've been discussing on my show recently as it relates to Draper, who I also had on my list of the most intriguing players entering the tournament because, and you're a little younger than me, but you were aware certainly of, you weren't there for the full Murray buildup because in 2007 I imagine you took your first steps, but like from that Andy Murray jumping into the crowd and gesturing them on under the twilight to like his slow rise, 2011 semifinal, 2012 final, he cries during the speech, 2013 he wins that freaking title. I don't know. I think Draper's still in the first step of that, where yes, he won the Indian Wells title. Yes, he made the U.S. Open semifinals last year. But he's not a consensus guy yet. Like, he is not an unequivocal top 8 contender who finds himself in quarterfinals or further at every major that he plays. I think this is the last year where he gets that grace period, where it's not countless expectations of is he going to win this tournament, but rather the still joyful innocence of being along for the rise of it. I think the best thing that could happen for this tournament is if it's Jack Draper versus Novak Djokovic in a quarterfinal, because every seat will be sold out. There will be countless celebrities in the stands. And from that moment on, that Murray level of scrutiny, to your point, Gil, will follow Jack Draper at every Wimbledon he plays moving forward. And we'll be talking about the Draper Drury outside or whatever term we end up going with. He's not there yet, but he's really damn close. And,
yeah, the level especially is really, really close.
And he beat Alcaraz on grass courts last year. He is a big lefty who gets forward and is comfortable volleying at the net, who also can play with improvisational excellence with his fluidity in the outer thirds. In my opinion, if you are building a player to beat Carlos Alcaraz over the next decade on this surface, it looks like Jack Draper, in theory. Now, that's in theory, not in practice quite yet. But I'm ready to get there. And again, I hope we get him versus Djokovic for the sake of the tournament, because that's a break through the mainstream sort of match with the hype and attention it will receive.
I said coming into the year that I thought Draper's level was going to be very much top 8. And in fact, I picked him to finish in the top 8, but on the peripherals of it. And then he wins Indian Wells, and I'm like, wait, was I wrong? Is he just fully baked and he's just ready to kind of do this thing this year right now? Since then, though, hasn't really had that repeat run. He did make the final in Madrid, and we're still looking at a guy who has one career major quarterfinal. So I think 5 is a good place for him. We are acknowledging his top level and how close it is to your Sinner Alcaraz level. Like, it's not that far away, but also probably needs some more seasoning, and you don't know for sure in a big match how he's going to handle that occasion just yet. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he struggled a bit.
Perfectly put. Him and Musetti are in the same tier of you haven't earned the consensus pick yet, but you're a slam away from it.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to actually be aligned on quite a few spots. I'm assuming Novak Djokovic is your number 3.
Who was your 4? Your 4 was, have you said it yet?
My 4 is Musetti.
Oh, your 4 is Musetti. Excuse me.
I put Musetti over Draper because of consistency. I don't think the peak level of Lorenzo.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think the peak level tops Jack's peak level. But again, in terms of results, and I just think Musetti, if you are making deep runs at every single big event on the natural surfaces, now it's like 7 or 8 tournaments in a row now. I've got to give it up. I've got to respect that over Jack, who has had some disappointing losses pop up here and there. I mean, Norrie round 2. Last year at Wimbledon, Norrie round 2. Bublik at Roland Garros. Lehechka in Queens in that semifinal. Like, there have been upset losses that have popped up with Jack. The same has not been true for Lorenzo.
He's played 9 tournaments this year, Jack Draper. He's lost 1 first-round match. It was the match to Menchik, first match Miami, obviously fresh off of Indian Wells. He loses that match 6-6. He's made 5 quarterfinals in those 9 events. I'm going to very quickly, I promise.
No, he's been consistent. I'm not saying he hasn't been consistent.
You just think Mussetti's been another level. You know what? Again, it's a fair argument to make. You've also seen him reach a Wimbledon semifinal. My last question as it relates to Draper, playing at home for him, is that burden or blessing?
I think right now it's burden.
Right now it's burden or right now it's blessing?
Right now, I do think it's burden. I think he's going to need to get used to that. He's going to need
Interesting.
to sort of get comfortable in that role.
Very fair. I can't knock the
But
argument.
no, sometimes it does go the other way. Sometimes like you're young, naive, you don't know where you are, and you're not feeling the pressure because you are just that young, and it's that fresh and new. So we've seen that many, many times.
The problem
I
is he's
think Jack.
23, not 19.
No, exactly. I don't think
Yeah,
Jack
it's
is
well
that
said.
guy. Like,
Yeah, that's really well said.
yeah. So let's talk about Djokovic. To me, it's like very clear that he's the three,
Yeah.
and there's just
Yeah.
no debate.
Yeah.
And I don't think Musetti, who's at 4, is close. I don't think Draper, who's my 5, is close. I almost think if I were to do this in tiers, I would say that Novak gets a tier 2 to himself.
Perfectly put. And I do think the gap between him and everyone else is larger, probably, than the gap between him and Alcaraz and Sinner. And I, like you said it perfectly. He is third on the list, regardless of everything else that has been significant struggles for Djokovic since the start of 2024 on court. The biggest events, he has not struggled. Like, I guess U.S. Open last year, fine.
That's the
But
only one.
yeah, last year's Wimbledon, he was in the final. Like this year's Australian Open, he was in the semifinal. This year's French Open, he was in the semifinal. Like he is still a sure thing to reach the final stages on a surface that has quietly been his house for the last decade. Obviously, what Alcaraz has done the last 2 years aside, like Djokovic sleepwalks to finals at Wimbledon, and oftentimes he's untested in doing so. And yes, he is in the tougher half of the draw. That's why I also think you have to have him third on this list. If he was on his own with Alcaraz, and it was just Alcaraz and Sinner on the same side, maybe you think differently. Like he's 3,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
is the one guy you feel like, yeah, if he plays Sinner, if he plays Alcaraz, it's a fight.
Yeah, we don't need to belabor it.
Yeah.
If
No,
if
tell
it
me
gets
what makes him good on grass courts. I've never seen it before.
if it gets to the Sinner matchup, then again, it starts to get really interesting because we haven't seen Djokovic come into a matchup that is just confounding to him really since 2011. Like that thing. I mean, sure, Rafa gave him some fits at Roland Garros, best of 5 clay, but he still got those wins, best of 3 clay here and there. So I don't think this would be a first for him at this stage in his career. How he processes that, what it means for the rest of his career, those that's where I think it gets really, really interesting. And also, can he win? Can he? If he serves as well as he was serving at RG, if his ball striking is as good as it was at RG, and Sinner maybe has a 90% day instead of an 100% day, like can Novak actually get the win? I think those are the interesting things to talk about. But him at number 3, not quite as interesting. Again, Alcaraz is my number 1. Sinner is my number 2. And Carlos, I mean, 5-0 in major finals, coming in on an 18-match win streak, back-to-back Wimbledon defending champion, 90% career win rate on the grass. Did you consider, and the head-to-head 5 in a row, Alcaraz over Sinner? So did that make it pretty straightforward for you?
I had the thought of, well, okay, what's the case for Yannick Sinner to be number 1, just to play that thought process out in my head, and there was no way to get there. Like, there's just no, unless you were trying to be clever, or dare I say, offering a hot take just to be different and be contrarian, that's the word I was looking for, how can you pick against Carlos Alcaraz? A guy who has already beaten Djokovic in a 5-set major final, has beaten Djokovic at Wimbledon, has beaten Djokovic, by the way, the last 2 years in the Wimbledon final, last year definitively in straight sets. He won another title in the build-up to this at Queen's Club. We don't spend enough time talking about Carlos Alcaraz's movement and what it actually looks like. Like, This guy floats. I just don't. He picks his feet up, Gil. His knees elevate in a way that I've just never seen another human elevate on the court. Like Djokovic's movement was so fluid, and it was so like again the flexibility of the hips and the different contortions of his body. Like Alcaraz is the most explosive version while still sustaining that sort of flexibility and fluidity and the drop shots and the volleys. And it's just like, dude, you're not supposed to be able to move like this on grass unless you have cleats on. And it's a joke.
It's like Federer with violence.
Yeah. Dude, you should pitch that to a Hollywood producer and they'd be like, all right, let's do it. We'll get Diego Luna or who's the guy in Andor to star in it right away.
Yeah, it's Federer, but then once he goes end range, then it's like that open stance backhand, bulging quads, like crazy pace generation with nothing but like, anyway.
You're so right, though. It's Federer with violence. It's like you're not supposed to be that graceful and that explosive.
100%.
Yeah.
Here's where the one thing, I don't know if it's pushing back, but where I agree with you, where we're on the same page is there's really not an argument to put Sinner number one on this power rankings. I will say, though, if they end up playing in another major final, it is at maximum a 60-40 match for Alcaraz. These guys are way too close together in level for people to be like, this isn't a conversation or that it's blasphemy if you pick Jannik Sinner, which is a reaction I've kind of seen to somebody on my show picking Sinner. Like, I think that's way off base. So can we kind of agree, like, it's close enough where, yes, there's no debate that Alcaraz is the alpha right now and the favorite right now, but let's acknowledge that there's variance that comes into play when two guys are this close together in level.
100%. Like, yeah, for Jannik Sinner, it's never lower than a 35% chance he can beat anyone. And, like, you remember for Sinner, obviously the last 2 years, 5-set loss to Medvedev last year was tough. The straight-set loss to Djokovic in the semifinal the year before that was tough. But it's not as though he's having second-round flameouts like at Wimbledon. It's not as though he's in a Zverev case where he's never made the quarterfinals of this event. No, he has steadily ascended on this surface as he has steadily ascended on every surface. And just the sheer pace that he can play with, like, it messes up your rhythm. Like, he is one of those guys who just takes away whatever it is you want to do. And, like, my biggest takeaway watching those first two events, even more so, grass courts are different, but he just looked like a guy who had 3 months off and had 3 months off in a really productive way where it's like, I can be fit, I can be healthy, I can rest my bones. Like, Jannik Sinner is just rounding into form. He's just getting calloused up. Absolutely not. Like, he's too definitively, and absolutely, he always has a shot against Alcaraz. He's Jannik freaking Sinner.
Yeah. Do you have before we wrap up, do you have a women's pick to win?
I made this reference to David Kane. To do what we do, you have to have an inherent familiarity of, like, quarterfinals, orange color, semifinals, yellow color, finals, purple color, title, green. When you look at the Wikipedia career stats, right, for all the great players, like, you know the chart I'm talking about. You've seen, like, all of them. Sabalenka's in the midst of one of those chart runs right now where it's like we will go back and look and it'll be like, she did what for how many years consecutively? And so it's like, this is a surface where she should have won a title already. This is the one that's always made the most sense. I think classy chaos, as we alluded to at the start, like, I think that's what we're going to get from the Wimbledon women's singles draw. I think Iga's going to have a quietly good tournament, but I'm going to pick Sabalenka and be fine being wrong because it's Arena freaking Sabalenka, and, like, she is always the pick.
I get it. I've got some concerns mentally with coming off RG, even though one thing, she's been really good at turning the page. So I get that. I just think the Wimbledon history combined with what we just saw with Sabalenka, it makes me go off the board. And I'm going to go with Keys. I think Keys has backed up. I think she's backed up the Australian Open title better than I thought, honestly, because I thought psychologically there was going to be some challenges there to kind of get back to work. I think she's handled it well. and she's been really consistent at Wimbledon over the years. And the pace redirecting, the pace absorbing, how much harder it looks to rush her these days, and the serving, and obviously the weaponry on this surface. I'm throwing a dart and picking keys.
She was the favorite before she got injured against Paolini last year. Like,
She
legitimately,
was.
in my mind, I thought she was the favorite to win the title. Things always get a little weird at Wimbledon. My last question for you before I let you wrap up your own show is the best possible thing that can happen to tennis another Sinner-Alcaraz final? Like, do you think, based off of the momentum that they built at the French Open, it's July 4th, start of July, there's not a lot of other sports going on. It's a very American-centric take, so apologies for that to your international listeners. But it's the best possible thing that happens for the sport is it becomes another appointment viewing, and this time everyone's ready for it, and we get it right away.
Absolutely.
That is just no doubt.
Yeah, because how many people after the French final they booked 18 hole course on that Sunday, and they went out for a round of golf, and they were like, "Oh, I probably should have actually watched that. That seemed really awesome because of the buzz and the hype." And that was one of those matches where everybody started to say, like, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. And the ratings in the US were relatively great. The ratings worldwide were not even relatively, just great. And there would absolutely be more, I think, pre-match recognition in the mainstream that you'll want to clear out your Sunday, which didn't exist. I think for the French, it was a lot of people discovering this whole thing for the first time, especially Sinner.
Very well said. It's also on ESPN, so SportsCenter would give. Who's SportsCenter calling for those 7 minutes? Like the 7-minute preview segment they're doing, probably in the D block, like leading.
John McEnroe. John McEnroe.
You think they? No, I guess I was thinking they'd bring someone in studio, like they'd call a former player. But you're so right. They'll have a desk at ESPN. They'll just go to the desk. That was dumb. Bad question. Leave it in, but bad question.
Of course, we're going to leave in all your blunders, Grusky. Thanks for coming on, as always. Appreciate it. Let's have a great Wimbledon.
You're the best. Thank you, as always, my friend.